Hello, everyone. I just wanted to start this live with a moment's silence for the lives we've lost to police brutality and institutional racism, particularly in the past couple of weeks. May the souls of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Belly Mujinga, Shukri Abdi, Mark Duggan, and the numerous Black lives we've lost rest in peace. And may the fight for justice and a brighter tomorrow continue. So welcome everyone to the second careers session. So we had one last week where we looked at careers holistically, and we're going to have another this week, so today, and next week as well, same time. So for those that don't know me, my name is Oge and I'm president of the Students' Union. I hope everyone's feeling okay, or as okay as they can be during this time. So the Students' Union and the Career Service have come together to provide these sessions for students, particularly amidst a global pandemic where we are trying to support you to go out into the world and the world of work now that you've graduated. Today's session will be focused on planning for your next step after university, because this can be daunting and overwhelming for a lot of us. So what you can consider when exploring your next steps, what your options are after university, and how you can prepare now. So not just looking at grad schemes and so on, and also how to transition from being a full-time student where you're focused on one thing all the time to just not being a full-time student anymore, and how we can support you as a university through that transition. So we have two people from the Career Service and a former University of Leicester student with us. Very grateful to our panel of speakers. So I'm going to hand over to Robyn, who will introduce herself and also present what she'll be discussing.
Thanks, Oge. Yeah, hi everybody. So just a quick introduction of me. So my name's Robyn Brown. I work in the Career Development Service at the university. My role is predominantly focused on working with employers, so trying to work with kind of graduate employers to support both students and graduates to secure roles when they leave us, and different initiatives that are involved in that. So today, I'm just going to talk about kind of two separate areas. So one being the labour market, so what the market looks like right now, what we're hearing from our employers, just to give kind of you guys a bit of an overview of what it looks like from the other side. And then I'm going to go on to talk about different initiatives that you can get involved in whilst you're still at the university, to support you with kind of moving on and leaving us. So first of all, just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of what the employers are saying at the moment. So I'm sure it reflects a lot of how you guys are feeling as students at the minute, but the main word that crops up constantly through conversations that I have is uncertainty. Everybody's very uncertain at the moment, and there's not a lot we can do about it apart from react to what's happening. So employers are, their main focus at the moment and their biggest concern at the moment is their finances. What is their business going to look like throughout kind of COVID-19, and then when we come out of COVID-19? What we're seeing at the moment, as I'm sure you guys are seeing as students, is that they have had to change their ways of working, and nobody likes change, employers as well as you guys as students. So I'm sure you will have seen that the majority of things have moved to working remotely. What employers are telling us, although this has been a big change, is that they actually are quite enjoying doing things remotely, and this will continue. So if you're going for kind of interviews or assessment centres virtually, that will continue. So do kind of have practice of them and get used to doing that moving forward. From an employer's perspective, our SMEs, so kind of small to medium sized businesses, are being affected a lot more than the larger organisations by COVID-19. So just bear that in mind if you are applying for roles, or if you've got any offers outstanding, any interviews outstanding. Think about the type of business that you're applying for, or the type of business that you're going to work for, and what effects COVID-19 can have on them. What we've learned over the last few weeks is that 71% of employers still want to engage with both students and graduates. I know at the minute for you guys it can seem a little bit doom and gloom. You're very worried about your future, but a lot of employers do still want to have that engagement with both students and graduates, which is really reassuring. What they are tending to say is that internships and placements are having the biggest impact at the moment, and that's not to say that they're retracting both them things, but they're just having to change. So they're having to do them virtually, or they're having to postpone them to later on in the year. The three things I would say kind of main takeaways from the labour market at the moment for students is continue to be really proactive. And when I say that, I mean a lot of your kind of next stage and going on to your career, a lot of interview questions, a lot of employers will want to know what you did during this period. So make sure you are doing something that you would be happy to talk about, or that shows a bit about you as a person. Go into an interview being asked what you did during kind of COVID-19 lockdown and saying you just watched Netflix for however long it may be is not that great for an employer. So just make sure you are doing something you could discuss, and it just shows that you are a very proactive person. If you do have any outstanding offers or interviews, just make sure you're very aware of the status of them. So are they still going ahead? If not, you need to find out, but just make sure that you are being very kind of sensitive in the way that you approach that conversation, because yes, it's a very, very difficult situation for you guys as students and or graduates, but also it's a very hard time for employers too. So just show that you are being kind of understanding and supportive, but equally you do need to know where you stand in terms of your kind of next step in career. So that's a bit of information about the labour market at the moment and what that looks like. If you want any kind of specific answers to any questions, please do let me know. The main basis of my role is kind of speaking to these large employers and SMEs, so I can give you a bit of an oversight on any particular questions that you might have. The next thing I just wanted to mention is around kind of initiatives that we're working on as a career service at the moment that could help you. Now, the main one I just wanted to mention is our consultancy challenge that's being released in kind of mid-June, that is aimed at final year students, and the idea of it is for you to gain some professional experience by working on a real life scenario with an employer. So essentially what you would be doing is working in a virtual team on a problem that's been set by an employer, and then presenting your kind of research and findings back to that employer. So you'll be working really closely with an employer that you will apply for. So you will choose who you essentially are consulting for. And at the end of it, you'll get feedback on your findings and be able to kind of get a bit of insight about the employer as well. So that will be released mid-June, and all the information on that can be found on our career site, which is, I believe, on the slide that's being shown to you. So do have a look and keep your eye peeled for that. Again, if you want any more information, please do let me know. The other thing I would say at the moment is, because we can't have employers on campus like we would normally, you can't speak to them, you can't get that kind of insight. The main thing that they're doing at the minute to kind of replicate that is webinars. So you probably see them popping up all over the place. Please take advantage of them. That is the only tool that employers have at the moment to still have contact with students and graduates. So there's some webinars listed on our website. There's lots of different employers that are running them. So if there's a particular sector or a particular employer you want to work for, go and do some research into them and find out if they are running any webinars. And just make sure you are taking advantage of all resources available. So there's lots of things that are cropping up that are new and different. There's lots of kind of virtual internships you can be doing. There's lots of different things that you guys can engage with, but you need to be proactive and go out and find them now. We can help you as kind of careers advisors and the career service, definitely, but it will say a lot about your character through this time if you do go out and find them yourself. So just make sure you are doing so. I think that was everything from me. Please do let me know if you've got any questions on anything I've said, but I am going to pass over to my colleague Paul to talk a bit more about how we can support you as the careers service.
Thanks, Robyn. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. So my name's Paul, and I'm one of the qualified careers coaches within the Career Development Service. So I've been working recently with life sciences, but I have worked with students of all disciplines. I do a lot of one-to-one work, and as was sort of introduced earlier, the idea of kind of you thinking about making your next steps is the main thing here. And I've just got, like Robyn, just a few things to kind of get across to you this afternoon, which are hopefully good news and positive. The first of which you may or may not be aware, but the Career Development Service, in these strange times in which we find ourselves, is still operating very much as usual. Everything we would usually offer in terms of one-to-one support is there. As with most things at the minute, it's just done in most cases like this. So we can talk to you via Skype, we can talk to you over the phone, we can email you. So our support is very much there, and that will continue throughout the spring and the summer. So please bear that in mind. So in terms of what that looks like, all the stuff that we would usually support you with, things like applications, CVs, all the selection processes, they're perhaps the things that always spring to mind as the most obvious, and they're still very much there. So if you want your CV reviewing, if you are looking to apply for something and you want something looking over, that's absolutely no problem. It's interesting that, and I'm sure Robyn would agree, that before all of this, a lot of employers were starting to move more towards online interviewing and video interviewing anyway. So this is again something that through us you can practice or discuss if you want to, because it looks like things are going to be moving in this direction anyway. So that's something certainly to bear in mind. I think in terms of the career development support as well, and why I might encourage you to engage in a one-to-one meeting with us, is often people see us as kind of the people to go to if you want something fixed, if you want your CV developed, if you want to get an application reviewed. But also our career coaching appointments are very much an opportunity just to discuss your ideas. So if you find yourself at the minute just floundering and you're not sure where to start, or you've got loads of ideas, or you feel you've maybe finished and you've still got no idea what to do, that's as good a starting point as any to have a chat with us, because we can help you talk through your ideas. So there doesn't have to be a specific thing that you want. Please use the career coaching appointment just to kind of talk through your ideas, and our aim will be to help you kind of sort through those and come out with some things that you can be doing, COVID-19 or not really. So I would really kind of get you to sort of bear that in mind. The other thing I just wanted to kind of touch on as well, which is something that Robyn's mentioned a little bit already, is kind of, there is no doubt that the interview question of the future across all sectors might be, what did you do during COVID-19? How did you make the most of your time? And there are things that you can be doing, and bear in mind some of the things that Robyn's mentioned there. She mentioned that some organisations are maybe looking at maybe virtual internships, that kind of thing. Use this time to explore those. I've been having a browse on sort of various organisation websites recently, and they've all got response to this situation, what we're doing, what we can offer. So it is still worth really kind of exploring those things. And I think the other thing I would kind of add to that would be to use the time to network. I'm a huge advocate of LinkedIn, and there's never been a better time to use platforms like that. You can communicate with people, you can network, you can get your profile up to date. And again, all of these things are things that CDS can help you with, should you need to. So I think explore your options, think about what you're interested in, do your networking, use the career development service, as I say, just to discuss your ideas if you want to. And something else which I've come across, which is quite useful in particular during lockdown, is using the time to kind of reflect and think about where you want to go and maybe what you've done, which leads me nicely to kind of end my piece and hand over to Maddie.
Thank you very much, Paul. So hi, I'm Maddie. I graduated from the University of Leicester last year. My degree was in criminology, and now I'm working in PR. After I graduated, I moved to London quite quickly with my boyfriend. I didn't have a job lined up, so that made me feel quite uncertain about things. I did actually manage to get a job quite quickly, but it didn't really work out for the best, and it wasn't really the place that I wanted to start my career. So I left after a month, which again made me feel quite unsure about the start to the adult world that I'd been promised after university. And for the last 7 months, I've now been working for my dad's PR company, meaning that I've been commuting from London to Peterborough. It's not exactly been ideal, but I feel like I'm making the most of the situation, which is why I wanted to come on here and talk to you students and graduates that might be feeling a bit confused about how to approach the situation at the minute, even though everything seems a bit up in the air. And as Paul and Robyn have mentioned, employers are still hiring and they want graduates on their team, but it can seem quite scary. But even though I haven't gone through that myself, it did seem like being a graduate was quite a new thing, quite daunting, and things don't work out for the best sometimes. And as Robyn and Paul have both stressed, it is really what you do in this situation that matters. So I found myself on furlough quite a bit, and I'm going on furlough again in July, but I plan to make the most of that time by doing online courses. I've also actually started a blog that looks at the life of a graduate and the sort of things that you need to prioritise in your career, your self-care and your finances. So I plan to make the most of my time off by working on that and helping other people. I feel like that'll just show how proactive I am to future employers, which is great. So I can only stress to you, if you find yourself without a job, without any idea what you really want to do, try and make the most of this time and really make the most of what the uni have on offer, because they are there to support you as a student and a graduate. And I know I definitely need to make more use of them to find out what I really want to do with my career. So that's who I am. So if you have any questions about what it's like to be a graduate at the minute, then please feel free to ask.
Thank you all so much for your insight and for the contribution that you've all made this afternoon. It was really good conversation, really good to know what students can do during this time, because I think a lot of people are confused about what they can and can't do. I just want to remind students that they can send in questions, and as questions come in, we'll be posing them to the different panelists so that they can answer. So do continue to send them in. I have one question here, and the question is, how can I engage with employers now? And then I'm also gonna just add on to that question and say, especially in a time where everything's online, how can students engage with employers now? So I'm going to pass that question on to Robyn.
Well, thanks, Oge. Yes, it's a very good question. So as mentioned earlier, the main way you can engage with employers at the minute is by sitting in on their webinars. That will give you a lot of insight information, and a lot of them are interactive. So it will give you a chance to ask questions. It will give you a chance to engage with them directly as well and learn a bit more about their culture and who they are as people. That's the main kind of output that employers are focusing on at the moment. The only other thing I would say is just make sure that you're getting involved in any virtual internships or any virtual sessions that any particular employers you're interested in are running, because that gives you a chance to kind of showcase your skills and showcase your interest. So unfortunately, it is all going to be virtual at the minute. That's the world that we're in. But any virtual aspects that employers or the sectors are promoting, I would definitely engage in if I was you. Thanks, Oge.
Thank you. No, I think it's a very important question because everything is moving online. So it is almost a bit difficult to know how to engage with employers at this time. I think we're losing that intimacy, that face-to-face intimacy that you have. So you're going to have to be a bit more creative to show your personality via behind a screen, I guess. So I think that's a challenge that students will have to take up. But our career service is available, and they're also offering one-to-one coaching for students. So if you don't already know, at the end of this session, you'll see the link where you could go online and book into a session. But yeah, just for students to know, you can get one-to-one career coaching sessions with our career service. The next question I have here is it's a very interesting one because we spoke about it in last week's session, and it's, should we be changing our plans and focusing on sectors that are more likely to be surviving in this climate? So should students be changing their plans and so on? And so last week we spoke about this and some of the advice the careers guys gave were around being flexible, because some students don't know if they want to go into further study or if they should go into work and everything's a bit uncertain. But it'd be great to hear from one of our panelists. So I'm going to hand this question over to Paul.
Thanks, Oge. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I mean, and I think probably to start with, I would echo, I guess, what was mentioned last week. And again, it's perhaps worth mentioning again in a sort of broader context. The career pathways that people take these days, in particular with what's going on at the minute, are very, very kind of all over the place. And I would always kind of think there's a positive there, and it's very, very difficult to take a misstep. If you go into something, regardless of what it is, you'll take something from that and then go into whatever you do next. And that tends to be how sort of our career pathways work these days. And it's not always an obvious link, but that idea of being flexible and focusing on what your strengths are and how you can apply them to different things would be very, very important for me there. I would be, if I'm honest, a little bit wary of feeling pushed into sectors that you're maybe not so keen on because that's where the demand is. I'm not sure. I totally agree with that, and I think also it comes back to one of the things we were talking about earlier, is this is a good time now to make sure you do your networking, speak to us, and also speak to the employers, you know, through the many routes possible, and get their take on it, because it may be that certain industries are thriving and we think maybe they wouldn't, or they may be doing things a different way, but you can put the question to them, because I think it would still be important, despite everything, to make sure you are still following your specific interests. And I would kind of look to follow that first, but also, as we said, you know, it may not be a direct route in, there may be a few sort of bends along the way, but you'll take stuff with you and you can still work towards it. And that's what we're here for, to help you with that.
Thank you so much, Paul. I think what you were saying about like your interest is so important, because you don't want to go into a career that you're not passionate about, or something that you're not even interested in, just because, you know, it's the only thing that's available right now. I just want to continue on that, and maybe ask Maddie if you had any thoughts on that, particularly, especially as somebody that's graduated recently. Do you feel like you would have changed anything about the career path you've gone down in any way?
I feel as if I am happy with the career I've ended up in for now, as it's allowed me to see what sort of things I like in my job, what sort of interests I might have external to that, and then that might shape my career better. Going from what Paul said about going into an industry that might not suit you but might just suit the market trend at the minute, I would definitely shy away from that personally. I do look for new jobs still at the minute, as I just feel as a young professional there's always chance to be developing and trying to find new opportunities for yourself. And I have considered various industries that seem to be thriving at the minute and have a little bit of what I might want to do, but I've never really sacrificed the things that I love just to get ahead in a career that seems to be doing well. So I would definitely never really put what I want behind what the market might be saying. So definitely just stick out things and see what opportunities come up in the future, really.
Thank you so much for your insight, Maddie. I've got a question here from a PhD student who wishes to become a lecturer. How do you suggest I go about getting experience as a doctoral graduate teaching assistant? So I'm going to pass this question on to Paul.
Thanks, Oge. Yeah, interesting question. And on that, as I guess most people are aware, I've been in a few meetings already this week about what that will actually look like moving forward. There is lots of talk at the minute about content being delivered online and virtually anyway. I think for me, to start with that one would be to use the contacts that you've got and reach out and see how you can get involved, because I think with the market at the minute and so much teaching and delivery and so much debate about whether it could or should be online anyway, there may be multiple chances to get involved with supporting with designing resources, bits of delivery that you can do now during COVID-19. And I think then that gives you a solid base then to start to build up your CV and what you've got to offer, and then to kind of look for those opportunities when they come along. But I think, yes, certainly any kind of interest in sort of the teaching sector, or in particular lecturing, it's an interesting time, because there's so much debate about how that content should be delivered anyway. As everyone here knows, the University of Leicester, Panopto, lecture recordings, there's quite a lot of talk about that at the moment. But I think use the contacts that you've got, I think, and start to see what their take is, and then start to get involved and maybe build some experience. And I think that's something that you could be looking at even now. Hope that's helpful.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much, Paul. I have a very interesting question here that we also got in the last career session as well. Will it be more challenging for a non-British graduate looking for some roles? So do we have any advice for international students going into the labour market and what they could be looking out for specifically? So I'm going to pass that question on to Robyn.
Brill, thanks, Oge. Yeah, really interesting question. And there's a few different ways that you could look at this. My initial answer would be no. I don't see it affecting the recruitment of international students. A lot of recruitment processes are blind, essentially. So there's no bias, there's no kind of way that employers could kind of change that bias in any way, especially unconscious bias or anything like that. All companies try and avoid that through recruitment processes in general. The only way I could see it affecting any non-British graduates at the moment is through visa sponsorship. And this is a challenge that I know students face quite a lot in the market, is all around kind of visa sponsorship and what that looks like. What I would say with that is, through conversations I've had with lots of different employers that we work with as an institution, and speaking to other kind of institutions and professionals, it hasn't seen a change. So if employers sponsor visas normally, and it's something they normally do, as far as I'm concerned, there's no plans to change that. And I haven't heard any different. But I would just make sure, if you're going into a recruitment process and you require for your visa to be sponsored, just make sure that employer has the capability to do that. What you don't want to do is go through the whole recruitment process, and this is just in general. I don't think COVID-19 has affected it as such, but just generally, if you're going to apply for an employer, I would just make sure that they've got the capacity to sponsor your visa if that is something that you do need. Thanks, Oge.
Thank you so much for the response, Robyn. I've got a question here about the Leicester Award. I haven't completed the Leicester Award and I'm graduating next year. That's a good question. I'm going to pass that question on to Paul.
Thanks, Oge. Yeah. The Leicester Award at its heart, really, I mean, it's interesting that we've got Maddie with us, because what it really encourages you to do is to just think about and recognise what your skills, strengths and motivations are, first and foremost. And, you know, if students have done it in whatever guise it's been in over the last few years, then I would consider it valuable, but only in that you are able to articulate what you got from it. As we often sort of say to students, if you put on your CV, I have the Leicester Award, as much as we love it, it may not mean a great deal to the employers, but it's that ability to self-reflect and be able to identify your strengths, your skills, your motivations, your values. That's really the important part. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, I didn't do it, is that drastically going to affect me? No. But if you want to know how to get the best out of something like that, then I would take a leaf out of Maddie's book in terms of what she's doing now with the journal, with the reflective blog. Just because I think it's often an underrated thing that it can really help you. I mean, we mentioned a few moments ago about going for maybe sectors that maybe aren't so appealing. I think before you kind of get to that, it's worth thinking about what are your interests, your strengths. Something I often say to students in one-to-one appointments is don't be led by job role. There are so many different job roles out there. they get their names changed, they get invented. But if you've got a solid grasp on what your strengths are, what your skills are, and what kind of things interest you and motivate you, and if they align with your values, then those you can explore. And it's almost like when you find those, what different job roles there are within those, you'll find. So really for me, the Leicester Award bit, you could still be doing your own version of it now, I guess, as Maddie perhaps is. I don't know whether if Maddie's got anything to say on that. Put you on the spot there, Maddie.
No, that's fine, thank you. I did the Leicester Award in my first year, I believe, but as Paul says, it hasn't really been that much of a talking point on my CV, because it has just allowed me to see what I'm interested in and pursue that further. But I think another thing that it really showed was that at university, all of your work doesn't just have to surround your modules and your course. It's just another way of learning that you can use your spare time to develop personally. So it's a really good way of showing you how to stay organised with your modules, as well as staying organised with your personal development, because your personal development is something that should always be maintained and improved on throughout your whole career. So learning those skills, trying to do something on the side of your degree, such as the Leicester Award, is great. So if you haven't done it, that's fine. Just consider doing other little things that let you know your interests, like whether that be online courses or just reading books. I found that reading books has really helped me to get to know myself better in terms of my career interests. So don't panic at all. Just take from it what you can, and then you'll be fine, I'm sure.
Thank you both for the insight on the Leicester Award. I did the Leicester Award as well when I was a student. I thought it was interesting to do, so I got some experience from it. I only stopped talking about the Leicester Award maybe last year, but when I was a student, I used to talk about it all the time and the experience I'd gained from it. And like Maddie said, it helped me understand what I wanted to do, and business consultancy was not it. So I think it's good to help kind of break down your interests as well. But if you didn't do it, it's not an issue either, really. So just we're coming to the end of the live, so I'm just going to integrate the last two questions together because they both talk about internships and placements. So the question is, if I haven't secured an internship or placement, how will I make myself stand out? Or and where do I draw the line between getting unpaid experience and asking for paid work, which can be a huge issue for some creatives particularly. So I'm going to pass that question on to Maddie.
Thank you. So I've not personally done an internship or a placement, but I did do quite a bit of work experience throughout school and at university. But that's because I was so fortunate to have my dad that had this company that I could work for. In terms of standing out, I actually started a small business in third year at university where I painted and sold plant pots to students at affordable prices. And when I first went for interviews after third year, that was the first thing that employers asked me about. They didn't look at any of the experience that I'd done at PR and comms companies. It was just straight away a talking point, and it was quite interesting. I remember going for an interview and someone's first thing was like, my wife would really love that. I'd love to know a bit more about it. So it was really interesting to know that my extracurricular things had made me stand out, perhaps more so than my actual career experience. And then drawing on the second question about getting paid for your creative work and your work experience generally, I've recently taken the plunge into calling myself a blogger and being more creative in that aspect. And I have people reaching out to me and asking if I'll do things on a free basis. And I think it is mostly just about building the confidence to realise that everything that you can bring to someone or a role is worth their money. They should be paying you for your time and your skills and experience. So if you don't feel comfortable working for someone else for free, consider what you can do for yourself and invest in that for free. So my blogging has given me a lot of experience in writing and comms, and that was all done for free. So if you don't want to work for someone but you want that experience, just look what you can do sat at your own laptop at home, and that might really help you. I'm not sure if Paul or Robyn have any other advice around paid work and unpaid work. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly echo that really, Maddie. I mean, I think it is tricky, you know, the sort of the paid, unpaid, but I think there's opportunity in everything. And often sort of doing these things, if it's ultimately going to support you further down the line, then yeah, I guess so. I mean, I mentioned previously before, I'm a big advocate of LinkedIn, and the profile section on LinkedIn does give you opportunity to almost give examples of your work, media, whatever it is. If you have a blog, you can put a link to it, and it's about almost kind of putting yourself in the shop window, you know, and creating awareness about you and your talents. And if that's for free, then I guess it's still working out for you. And I think that the other final thing I would say on that, going back to something we mentioned earlier about you know, what are you doing during this time? One of the things that all employers, I would say, and I hope Robyn will agree with me, across all sectors, is they're interested in people who are continuously willing to develop themselves. So, as you say, Maddie, when you're at home with your laptop, there are a multitude of online courses, things to research, explore, look at. We've never been better connected in that respect, and I suspect it's something that employers will take an interest in terms of not just kind of what did you do within your education, but how do you kind of develop yourself outside of it as well.
Thank you all so much. I just want to say a huge thank you to our three panelists for the amazing contribution that they've brought to this session. Once again, students, it's so important that you're seeking these opportunities and seeking help as well. So if you are unsure about where to go, you're kind of anxious about leaving full-time study, please do get in touch with either the SU or the career service. So on the screen now, you'll be able to see our upcoming session. Give it a second. Our upcoming session, so the next live careers Q&A will be next week, Thursday, 3 p.m. to 3:30, and we'll be tackling creating great applications to secure experience. So specifically how you can apply some application techniques and interview techniques as well. So we touched a little bit about how interviews need to be tailored. So we'll be exploring that more in the next session. So thank you once again to our panelists. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. Hopefully you found this session beneficial. If you have any comments or feedback for us, once again, get in touch with the SU or the career service. Please do look after yourselves, and remember, Black Lives Matter.